What are good and evil? And how do we know what we think we know about them? In no small part, it comes down to the stories that we tell ourselves and the way that we tell those stories. Lots of different games, including visual novels, RPGs, and even some action and shooter games, include mechanics to quantify and judge your actions. Both of these categories are ways in which a game judges its player, passes moral and objective judgment on the actions of the player, and it makes sure to let you know. Now, different games have different names for these mechanics. There are tons of them. Chaos and light, order, dark and light, good and evil, benevolent and cruel, approval, alignment, loyalty, uh, opinion, uh, karma, honor. There's dozens of different names for these mechanics. Having so many different names for so many different types of systems, even ones that are very similar, serves a distinct purpose. The different language used conveys different implied meanings. For example, to call something evil has a very different connotation than to call it a renegade action. For me, one of the most interesting things about the game design of these morality systems and other judgment systems is the language that they use when they're passing judgment on the player. The stories that we tell are shaped by how we tell them. For example, games like Dungeons and Dragons, which characterizes good and evil as inherent properties within the universe. Games like Fable use this sort of black and white, good and evil labeled mentality to describe the actions of your hero. And when you take certain actions, they affect concretely the world around you. In Fable, when you make too many bad choices, the light starts to bend around you and you are enveloped in shadows. Whereas if you make a bunch of good choices, then you start to glow and wear a halo. These physical manifestations of your moral decisions reflect this view that there's something inherent and fundamental about the morality in these worlds. In Dishonored, Corvo is described as an assassin. He is described throughout the advertising, even throughout the game, as an assassin. And so the game clearly isn't passing a judgment that killing people is inherently evil, although you can go through the game without killing a soul. What matters isn't that you kill people at all, it's if you cause chaos while you're doing it. Killing too many people isn't shown as something evil, it's showing as something that sows chaos in the city. It is the chaos which is bad, not necessarily the murder. Instead of asking you to play the game by a specific moral code, Dishonored is really asking you if you're going to treat the city as something that you need to care for. Are you ensuring the survival of its citizens? Are you, maintaining order while you restore justice? Or are you sowing chaos, killing everyone that you meet, and potentially harming the future of the city itself? Mass Effect's Commander Shepard is always going to be the hero of the galaxy, and the game lets you know that. No matter how ruthless your decision making is, and no matter how many people you kill, your actions will always be considered renegade, not evil or bad. There's no such thing as an evil Shepard, because then you wouldn't be the hero of the galaxy, you wouldn't be the savior of the people. Even in Mass Effect 2, where Dr. Shaquas tells you that if you're that your mental state, even in Mass Effect 2, where Dr. Shockwave tells you that renegade actions will affect your psyche negatively, and thus, because of, your nanotechnology, negatively affect your physical healing, you're still not considered an evil shepherd. Renegade options are not evil. Even if you have red glowing cracks down your face and you kill people with no remorse, you're still the hero because of the end that you're working towards. And that says something. It's clear that the way that we construct our game stories affects the games themselves. They tell you stories, and the story is affected by the words that are used to tell it. If you can't make evil actions, then your character inherently can't be evil. If your actions are not judged by morality, but by the effect that they have, then morality is a little grayer than we like to think. Linguistic studies have suggested that the words that we use affect the way that our listener and the person hearing those words understands the meaning. The specific words, depending on their social meanings, their societal implications, have really genuine impacts on the ability of the listener or audience to perceive what you're saying. Another example is the way that the United States government has funded certain games to be made, in hopes, presumably, that games about war and depicting soldiers as war heroes will aid in their recruitment efforts. The language that we use and the worlds that we present in all of our stories, but in no small way, video games, definitely affects the way that we see the world and the way that we interact with it. Everyone likes to think that they're the good guy, that they're making the right choices, even if they're not the easy ones. And the stories that we tell ourselves can reinforce certain views of what it means to be the good guy, what it means to make the right choices, what it means to make the hard choices. The games that we play are stories like any other, but even more than a television show or a book, games, because of their interactivity, allow us to practice certain ways of acting, or at the very least, certain ways of viewing moral actions.